Thank you. So this is Keith Hogan, members. So Keith, you're submitting as an individual, so you get 4 minutes. There's a clock up here that will count down, and the 4 minutes includes questions. And don't start until you're ready. The clock won't start until you're ready to go.
Okay. Yeah. I've just got some bullet points, so I'll get going if you don't mind. Really, how I'm looking at it, I'm retired now, so my main income is the pension. So I'm looking at what I'm going to live on. Ladies and gentlemen, the cost of paying my current rates, or our current rates, is 17.59%, and that's going to increase to 21%. By 2029, under your current figures or your plan, I'm going to be paying $93 a week. Person on 60 grand, if they're earning 60 grand, which is an average wage, their costs are 4.65% of their wage paying the cost of their rates. Somebody on 400 odd grand, 0.6%. So I do note that it says in the paper that your rates are going to drop 16%. That's not really a good look when you're looking for 21%. You say you haven't been putting up costs in the last 5 years. I look at the V8 saga, and I understand we inherited $40 odd million. You can stand me corrected on that one if you like. But are there not councillors on this council now that were part of that council when all that was taken? And I thought Julie Hardaker did a pretty good job in getting those debts down. From present council figures, we presently owe $400 odd million. By 23, we're going to be owing $750 million. These are from your figures. So if your rate increases don't cover this debt, what are you going to do? Back to the ratepayers? No mention of water rates. Is that to come? And with your 10-year plan, will rate increases, will you be putting up any more rates, or are you quite happy to tie it at what you say for 10 years? And my 3 minutes is just about up, sir. Have you got any questions for me?
Members, are there any questions? Thank you, Garrett. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Paul. Paul Hogan.
Sorry?
Not Keith, is it? Beg your pardon, sorry.
I've
written down Paul Hogan, my apologies. And Paul Hogan, of course, is a... Yeah. That ain't a knife. This is a knife. Sorry, Keith.
No worries.
Hey, can you give us some guidance? A number of submitters have queried the rates increases and expressed displeasure with it.
Yeah.
Give us a steer as to where you think we could, how we could avoid that. Services we can cut, things we shouldn't do, projects we shouldn't do.
In general, I like your 10-year plan, the number 6 version. But I think you really got to look at the costs. I mean, there's too much. Garden Place, I'd give that the axe. Why spend $4.7 million on that? You know, people don't come to the city centre as they used to. They stay in the suburbs. For an example, when was the last time you had a jazz festival, blocked the main street off and got people in? When was the last time you ever did that?
Yeah.
Know what I mean? If you want people to come in, you've got to provide that sort of family entertainment for it. But the average person, like I'm sitting in Rhoda Turner, I don't come into the city. 2 reasons. One is the bloody homeless, and the other one's the bums. Excuse the expression.
The homeless and the
bums.
okay.
You know.
Yep.
I don't want to be harassed about having to give them money. Well, I don't. That's what I think. You need to clean up, make your city attractive to do it. But a 21% wage increase, pushing up that value, is not going to work.
Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Keith, and thank you for coming in and submitting.
No worries. Thank you for your time. And good luck, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Julie,
And where the hell
is there anyone else at the counter?
No. No.
There's no one checking in right now? just before we move on to something else? Okay, so we'll move on now to questions and information requests from elected members. All the staff are here, so they'll jot down our thoughts and they'll put them together for us, and we'll go from there. So this is not a time for opinion. This is a time for information requests and questions. So we'll just power through them. We'll just go through the team. I'll start. So the first thing I'd like feedback on is the Airbnb rating at commercial rates. I presume if I'm speaking too fast, you guys will slow me down. Both the rowing clubs extending their footprints. They want to move on. They've been held back for a long time from what they had submitted. And of course we've got the UAGCs on single titles that only have family occupying them, where the second tenancy isn't rented out. So we've had a couple of people on that, and then of course the Pacifica. Sorry. So that's where my understanding is it's one title, two houses on it with one family sharing it or whatever. And that specifically meant that one of the family members couldn't claim remissions on their rates, which was an unintended consequence out of that as well.
So specifically what question?
So the question was, firstly, is that the daughter and mother were living on one title with two houses.
No, sorry, what more information do you need, Mr Mayor?
Well, we will, if we do go with UAGC, we need to know whether that's in or out.
Okay.
Yeah, we need, or whether we need to move to take that out, you know,
Yep.
to
So
ensure
there's probably no information we can provide on this stage, so that just needs to be, you need to bring that back up at a deliberations phase.
Yeah, it needs to be part of, at that
Yep.
stage, and then the other things that came out today were higher density building up, not out, and that would, a spin-off of that would be the height of buildings in the CBD that we need feedback on. Now, some of these may be sidelined from the 10-year plan and maybe other things, but they're things that have come up today. A cycle away from the university down the railway line into town, and whether staff can work on it and have something already like we did with the Western Rail Trail, so that when the government came up with funding, bam, we were ready to go, we put it in, and it was a high level of government funding.
So at this point, we're taking questions for clarity. That'll be one that you'll need to bring back for the deliberations aspect if you want something in the 10-year plan, Mr Mayor.
Well, I don't necessarily think that was one that I'll put up for the 10-year plan, but something that's come up that I think that triggered me thinking we had the Western Rail Trail all ready to go on paper, and when the government put the funding up,
Yep.
we were ready to go, bam, we qualified.
Yeah, but because sorry, I'm not being difficult, but because it's surfaced as part of a submission, effectively now it's to fall into the deliberation phase. So what I recommend you do is those ones that aren't for clarity, you capture those.
Yep, okay. I think, Lance, we need something back on particularly the Rest Hills submission, and specifically they were talking about redoing the toilets, which we know are in year 2 or 3. There's also the levelling of the grounds down there, and we just would need costs and things like that back if we were going in that direction. They asked for another set of toilets up by the car park and storage on site, and what would be involved in catering to those things that came up in that submission. And the other one that just come up recently was the draining of Inniscommon for sports parks and what the costs would be for that. So we'll just go around the table, Deputy Mayor.
So just to clarify again, this is questions for clarity. clarity is what he requested. Yep. So any information, like for example, the Deputy Mayor asked me on Friday about which other councils have a UAGC, which is a relevant question. Yep.
UAG, you know, tagged to a specific service like
UAC.
UAC, like water or rubbish.
Yeah, which is the question that was asked today.
Which has been a question asked. The Braemar Hospital, I'm just wanting to know if in fact other councils rate hospitals differently, or if Braemar sort of found itself in Auckland, what would happen? It's a bit of an apples with apples. I just want to see. I know that they're unique, but if it was, say, Southern Cross or another chain like Bupa, you know,
That's a question of clarity, that's fine.
yeah, just a question of clarity. The issue which the Mayor, he's been very fair today, colleagues, he's ruled me out of order a number of times. In fact, it's been very tough. Seed, I'm just wanting, it's parking over here, and whether I need to go bring it up through community service, it occurred to me with the seed submission, just as we have Dr. Peggy Koopman-Borden, you know, inputting on age-friendly Hamilton, and that's our sort of, if you like, source of advice around older issues, how we actually better plug into a group like SEED in terms of some of the picking into the millennials. And it's not to do with the LTP, but it seems what I'm trying to suggest here is it's a take-up idea of how we better relate to a group.
In response to that one, we'll put that on the very side list.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Engagement with community organisations, which we'll pick up later on.
That's what I'm looking for. Dr. Rebecca Graham, with the children, talked about disability, you know, in playgrounds, and probably is good for Judy Small. It might be a side list because it's not a matter of issue of funding for adventure playgrounds, but just making sure.
Do you have a particular point of clarity?
Well, kids with disability, just making sure that we are.
Do we have some?
We
all right,
have,
it's
we
okay,
have,
it's
no,
fine.
we have a focus.
I'll put that onto the side list.
Obviously, no, but as a side list, you know, it comes out that obviously when we actually have the plan coming back for Adventure Playground, we are addressing some of those, you know, maximum access issues. I know we're doing this. I mean, okay, and we did, like Hamilton Gardens was a good example. Now the Heritage Fund. Could we just talk about PR and comms, and just make a clear statement, because we've had two submissions from one from the Waikato Historical Association, who thought we'd done away with the Heritage Fund. So it seems to me somewhere we need to correct that. Axel Batch, our good councillor from Tamahiri, all I want is, and whether that's a side list, is what...
So what we might do is, if you can capture the side list stuff over here, what we're wanting today, if there's anything you've heard today from a submitter where you think, gosh, for me to make, you know, if I had the chance to ask this question of the submitter today, and I would a little bit more information to make my understanding of what they're trying to say, that's what I'm after.
Well, Lance can tell me in his own way how we're linking to Tamahiri. He just talked about the connectivity of our pathways, walkways...
Okay, so specifically about the 343 metres of footpath that isn't there yet. Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically just how we connecting, and is that a joint submission? Because Lance will be all over that, obviously. No, I think that's... and also, you mentioned Kote Pacifica, Waikato Settlement Centre, and obviously some issues that have been raised from my good friends in the Footsals, the La Crosse. They become side issues because it seems to me that they're not LTP, while they've come through the LTP process, the issue of location and what further assistance council can give, that's ongoing.
No, it's funding, it's the field situation.
Yep.
There's funding?
Yeah.
They ask for funding.
So
That's LTP.
So
it's Kote Pacific where it's a location issue.
Yep, I get, but again, that's a broader LTP discussion for deliberations as well. So I'm really, just to get, because this hasn't been hugely successful, sorry, I'm not having a dig, Deputy Mayor, is purely just clarity, questions for clarity. For example, your question the other day was completely appropriate. Richard, what are the councils paying in terms of UAGCs? What are councils paying in terms of UACs? If you don't have theirs now, don't worry, because the email address still is live, so you can still feed those through. Or you can come and talk to me later on and I'll capture them.
Sure, I'm just very quickly, and I'll shut up. It's just I'm very anxious that we actually identify stuff that doesn't actually come back through the LTP. A submission has been made on the LTP. Kote Pacific it's not an LP discussion of where they locate. That surely...
Yeah, but there's wheels already in train for that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Paula, So this is questions of clarifications
Yeah.
to make decisions on for things that have come up if you were going to go further with them on a plan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd like a little bit of background on the Heritage Fund and the reduction of the Heritage Fund, how much was spent on heritage projects in the last year.
Yep.
I'd like a summary of the amounts spent on projects undertaken on gullies over the last 6 years, plus the amount of gully spend forecast over the next 3 years and what the gully priority projects would be within that program. Am I on point with the questions?
You were very pointed.
Thank you. Ashurst Park has been bought up. I'd like to understand what is already planned for in that area. Timing,
Ashurst Park, what has already been planned for that area?
yeah, what is being planned or
Yep.
what is on the books?
Yep.
Ashurst Park, isn't that the one with softball?
No, no.
Sorry.
Rest Hill.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm trying to look through all my notes.
Rugby league.
Rest Hill Park, so I'll change that, thank you. Libraries, what is planned over the next 3 years for Hillcrest and Chartwell? In other words, what are the improvements that already sit in there, please? I know, but of course
Yeah, no,
we
no,
need
carry on.
these
No,
things
that's-
brought again. Plans, if there are any, to support Clarence while the new theatre is being built. Any scenario around having no rates decreased, you know,
Well-
this idea of a cap around which
No.
we've had
So
raised.
specifically, are you asking for what other councils do in terms of a
Yeah,
cap?
I need some background information on
Background
that, how it
information on
might, how it might work.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into details there. The implications of any of the SHAs on the cost benefits of either Peacock or Rotikoti, because that was raised and I don't understand enough about it. Pacifica Hub and Central Orchestra, in terms of what would the process and timelines be around progressing that? And don't need
I
to
think
answer
it's
it-
probably fitting into more of a deliberation point.
You don't need to answer it now, I'm just saying I need more information around that. Community grants, we need to update the report that we did receive before putting the draft document out.
Yep.
But we didn't really get time to discuss it. I'd like to see it again updated based on the information that we've since received
Yep.
in submissions.
That's good.
And one further, please, the feasibility, it's probably not my last, but feasibility of a sports coordinator to be based at Sport Waikato from our community.
Yep, so that's probably a deliberation
Is it?
discussion, yep.
Okay, well, at least you know what I'm thinking, yes?
Councillor
Thank you.
Gary.
Thank you.
Questions, clarity?
I think it was Jason Dawson, someone gave us a list of the prices of attractions around the area. I'd just like to see that information again. I didn't write it down.
So that's a hard copy from,
So there's Hobbiton, there was,
Yes.
I assume he probably had it in it. Was it Jason who gave
no,
us that?
it wasn't Jason, it was an earlier presenter, but I understand who it was.
I asked Jason about it, that's what it was. But I can't remember who it was who... Josh, that's right, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So if he, I just...
Yep, no, that's, we've got
Thank you,
that.
that's all I need.
Councillor Ryan.
Okay, I probably just put a flag beside your comment, Mayor King, on the Airbnb thing. It potentially could feed into rates revenue, etc.
You just have clarity about what's happening with Airbnb in the city, following up from the statistics that were provided on Friday from a submitter, is pretty much what you're after, Councillor Ryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I would like more than that. I want to know how we would go about doing it and introducing it into
No,
the plan.
Andrew, that's deliberation stage.
Okay, all
Yep.
right. So information so we can help make
Yeah,
a decision on the
information,
time.
that's all we can provide at
Yeah.
this stage is
Thank
information.
you.
Okay,
Sorry.
a comment you made also, Chief Exec, on we can't, with capital value, we can't do some areas in the city, it can only be done by geography.
Yep,
And
so there's information from a previous briefing we can resupply to you on that,
Well,
Councillor
you
Ryan.
haven't heard my question yet.
Oh,
So,
whoa, here we go.
with respect, I'm wondering if that geography, we could actually section out peacocks as a separate geography and introduce capital value at full rate there, but not necessarily still offer a transition on other areas of the city.
So that's probably a deliberation point, and yes, it can be done.
Good. And also on that note, Kim from EMA talked about uplift charge, so it probably feeds into that. Whether
A bit more information about betterment and uplift charges.
Yes, thank you. Just a sidebar on quite a few issues around turf were raised today at different fields, different types, etc.
So some background information about the options of turfs in the city in terms of what you can have.
Yeah, and
types of
just
turfs.
highlighting that was a bit of a flagged issue today across different community sporting sectors.
Okay.
Also feeding into Councillor Paula's the community funding pool. There were two strong asks for us to look at lifting that and or reevaluating the current give out?
Yep, so what we can provide is what we
articulation
currently
is
have in the
awesome.
10-year plan. It'd be subject for deliberations whether or not you increase those or not.
Thank you. Also, just flagging the Rest Hills one again, seconding what was said earlier. And also, there was a request for ethnic community strategic plan. So maybe a sidebar on that.
Councillor Jeff?
Questions for clarity, councillor?
So does this include requests for modelling ahead of deliberations?
No,
Yes?
this includes the additional information you need from hearing today
Okay.
Or Friday?
or Friday.
Okay, well,
Jeff, we can come back to you if you like.
it's mainly modelling that I'm after, but, really, to be honest.
So we can hold fire on that part, councillor Jeff.
Yeah, I'll just send that through direct.
Councillor Mark? Councillor James?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Just some clarity on, I think it was Robert Brager earlier today and Sally McDougall on Friday about the SUIPs. And there was talk about not deals, but certain offers being made to different SUIPs, and Mrs McDougall and her mum had not received the same sort of...
Okay, so what you're after is information on how SUIPs work in our current rating system?
Yes.
Yep,
So it's
okay.
fair across the board for everybody?
Yes, so that's information we already have prepared.
Okay, and the other one was with lacrosse tonight, and they're trying to seek sporting venues or sporting fields. I read an earlier submission from the Suburbs Community Sports Club. They've been trying to work with, they've been working with lacrosse to trying to offer them a venue there. I just want to know that whether council have been working with both clubs in that area to try and get them to operate out of Flagstaff Park.
So what club, sorry?
It's the lacrosse that were here earlier.
Yes.
And the Suburbs Community Sports Club at Flagstaff Park.
Do you want to know if we've been working with them?
Yeah, to try and get a solution there for lacrosse, because they obviously they've been trying to source a
Yep.
place to play, and I know Suburbs have been offering them a place to play.
Yep, the answer is yes, apparently.
Oh, good, okay.
Yep.
All right. And the other one is, I don't know, this might be I might be venturing out of line here, but you can tell me, Mr CEO.
I'm a nice guy, but...
Sorry?
I'm a nice guy, but...
But, yeah. No, there was talk earlier on from a earlier submitter about the bed tax, a possible bed tax here in Hamilton in hotels, $3 to $6 per night. I'm really looking for a little bit more information on that, how we would...
Well, I can provide information that's really publicly available on that, and whether or not you want to affect that or otherwise, we'll give consideration to come up with deliberations. So there's some generic information that Auckland's published on bed tax, which
Yeah.
will make available to the councillors.
I'd be looking at how it would affect our rates, the rates increase, whether it would
Yep.
take it down or not.
Yeah, that'll be something we can model up as part of the deliberations.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it, thank you.
Councillor Leo?
Just picking up on Braemar Hospital one there. He quoted 600% increase. Could that just be checked, I thought?
Yep. So what we'll do on that one is we'll just get clarity about those numbers. We have the information that's been readily available. I think even Braemar has been communicated to councillors at a briefing previously as well, so I can redistribute that information.
Yep. And the other one was the gentleman from Allendale Retirement Village. Do they actually pay rates per unit there, or is it the whole deal?
Yep, we will find that out as well.
Okay, separate titles, yeah.
I think
Yeah,
they are
separate
separate titles.
Okay.
So there you go. Your question's been answered by your colleague beside you.
Scott. That's me.
Councillor Rob?
I sent a couple off on Saturday. Do you want me to read those out?
Don't repeat the ones from Saturday
Okay,
at this
so,
stage.
so they were Friday's ones. From today, I just wonder if, and I may know the answer to this, but where you've got residents renting, is there a process where landlords can apply on behalf of the tenants for the rates rebate? And I asked that question following the group from the Marae, where presumably they've got a number of members who are renting, and may be affected by rates increases?
Yeah, I think I know the answer to that one as well, which is no, but...
Yeah, that's what I thought, but is there a process in terms of the legislation?
A relevant question to find out is what we currently do and whether or not we've challenged with this question previously, but also what other councils are doing. So that's a legitimate request for information, so I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Pascoe.
And the other question from today, and I hope this doesn't get close to modelling, but it's about the confusion I'm detecting from quite a number of submitters who seem to be confused between revenue costs and debt funding. And I just wonder if there a better way in terms of when you bring back those financial figures to us for deliberation, whether you can break down, first of all, maintenance, which is covered from revenue, renewals, which are covered from revenue also from depreciation, and then the upgrades, which are covered, I presume, from debt, because that's an added value either to a new asset or is upgrading an existing asset. Because I detect that there's confusion around about, one, how we split those up, and two, how well we manage each of those three categories.
So for the deliberations and so forth, we're going to be bringing back the information cut in numerous ways based on ongoing analysis since we submitted the budget, and that's part of that argument as well in terms of being as clear as possible. And also the movement changes. One of the questions that were raised today by a number of submitters was trying to understand better the movement between years, came through today, and some of the questions as well. So the team are already working on that. It's a legitimate question to follow up on.
Thank you.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you. Look, there was just a question, and I just wonder whether, can the council push supermarkets to speed up getting rid of plastic bags? Can we speed that up?
I need to follow out whether or not we have an option under a bylaw to do something like that. So I do know that LGNZ made as one of their remits almost 2 years in a row, I think, for them to follow up with the government to give them the power to do so. But I think it's very much a central government issue, but let me find out specifically what the response is on that.
Okay. Other thing is, all the stadia, or some of them, said they would do, they would build so they would also be used by the community. And so why can't the cricket clubs and the rugby and the netball, why can't they use, for example, netball, use Claudelands while it's empty to practice in?
Yep, so we've done a paper on that previously about the community use of our stadia, so I'll get that recirculated.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much. That's me.
Councillor Angela.
Councillor Ann's questions for clarity.
I only have one question for clarity. Just looking for some information on how other TLAs apply their criteria for charitable trusts. So like in regards to, I think in our policy it's got social outcomes, charitable trusts, you can't earn a profit. Just I want to know.
Specifically in the rating area, Councillor?
Yeah, yep. Sorry. And it's our remissions and postponements policy. Yep. Just want to know how some information on how other TLAs apply that criteria to charitable trusts.
Compared to our process.
Compared to our policy. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now call Alison Gibb, presenting for the Friends of the Waikato Museum. Just bring your team up with you, as many as you like. There's plenty of chairs there, or bring them up if there's not.
They're more or less sitting behind me anyway.
Okay. You have 9 minutes to present, including question times. The clock's on the bottom right, just being set now, and just start when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor King, and thank you, councillors, for this opportunity. Can you hear me? Cool. So the Friends of the Museum presented 3 points in their submission, which I just want to briefly speak to. The first one was the lack of additional funding over the next 10 years. So by definition, a museum houses items created by nature and by man, and in our modern society, it houses the cultural soul of the nation. Today, museums must become agents of change and development. They must mirror events in society and become instruments of progress by calling attention to actions and events that will encourage development in our society. And I quote those words from Emmanuel Erintz, President of the Commonwealth Association of Museums. The Friends are very proud of what the staff, under the leadership of Sheree Meacham, achieve. Visitor numbers have been on the continual increase for the last 5 years, and the education program, which is hugely supported by our local schools, ensures that we will continue to have an audience. However, our museum cannot maintain relevance, freshness, and attract the tourist visitors and fulfil its responsibilities to the City of Hamilton if it is continually strapped for cash. The second point was the river plan. The great milestones of human history took place by the banks of the river, and it is no accident that on the banks of the Waikato River, in the heart of Hamilton City, Ivan Mersip was inspired to design the stunning architecture of the Waikato Museum as we know it today. Waikato Museum is the home of the majestic war waka, Te Wīnaka, and is one of the few buildings in Hamilton that effectively and creatively connects the Waikato River to the street. It is little wonder that the Friends enthusiastically support option 1, which identifies that one of the first tasks is to enhance that connection through landscaping. To reinforce this, the Friends have already begun plans to purchase a sculpture to be positioned at the river's edge as our gift to the city. The third part of the submission is the name of the museum. The museum often receives 5-star reviews via social media, accompanied by comments such as, "A great place for art lovers." The Waikato Museum is the home of a large collection of art exhibits, a huge investment supported by a number of entrepreneurial people, such as our own Barry Hopkins, who has gifted the museum his $3 million collection, Trust Waikato, and the Friends, to name but a few. For the last 18 years, the museum has hosted the National Contemporary Art Award, for which a number of reasons has actually put Hamilton City on the map. It is absolutely vital that visitors to the city know this information, and for some years now we have lobbied to have the word art reinstated in the title. To our knowledge, the mystery as to why it dropped off has never been solved. Within our submission, we have provided a number of suggestions as to the name, and as this is not a costly request, we look forward to this being addressed in a speedy fashion. I'm now ready for questions.
Councillor Mark.
No, actually, thank you. You've kind of answered my question already about how much it would cost to change the name. It doesn't sound like a huge exercise.
I have no idea of the process in changing a name, but I can't imagine it's a costly process.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Alison. You asked, I think you alluded to wanting more funding. Do you think you've explored all the options you guys have for raising money yourselves? In terms of door charges or things like that?
I think the museum's very loath to charge. They do charge for some exhibitions, depending, what the exhibition is, of course. Obviously, the Friends can do things such as applying for grants and so on. And as I alluded to our meeting at the museum, Creative New Zealand, it is difficult to get funding out of them unless they feel also that the councils are supporting.
Why do you think the visitors to the museum would be reticent to pay?
I'm not saying the visitors are necessarily. I think.
Well, when I say visitors, I don't mean outside of Hamilton. I mean anyone who visits the museum.
Well, to me, the museum has a responsibility to house the very nature of the society, and I think to then turn around and charge them to see the nature of that society is perhaps a bit on the nose. Except that it's not a cheap process, is it? No, but I honestly don't believe that door admission is really going to address the costs of, exhibitions.
And it would be out of step with most museums in New Zealand. Why do we want to be different?
We want to be leading, don't we?
Yeah,
Gary,
exactly, but
Gary,
not by charge.
you've asked the question and given their answer. Deputy Mayor Martin.
Yeah, obviously, thank you for the very critical work you do. Two key take-home points, I think, is the name should more accurately reflect the mission of the museum, basically, and art, that you're saying, and with appropriate translation into our other official language, obviously. And secondly, accentuate, you're saying the connections, is it, to the river? You're talking about from the jetty up to the museum, is that?
The building was actually designed
Yeah.
to travel from the river up to the street, and with the river plan that the council have debated probably for a number of years now, we would look forward to the fact that people could actually approach the museum from the river, because the building's actually designed to be done from both ends.
Sure. There's been a bit of debate where the so-called river centre, in terms of where comes our focal point as against the ferry bank down.
Deputy Mayor, where are you heading?
Sorry?
Question?
I'm just wanting to see how you see the museum being a very key building with regard to the river in terms of its focus on the river. There's been a concept of a river centre, however that may evolve, but...
Well, my understanding is it's not necessarily the centre, but the fact that you travel down the river and stop at the various places, and the building was designed to be entered from both the river end and the street.
And so looking at the whole entry point of access from the riverside.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for what the Friends do for the city.
Thank you.
So, thanks. Keith Hogan. That's all right. Zhang Ju Su. And apologies if I didn't pronounce that correctly. You don't, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. First of all, thank you all for
You've
coming.
got 4 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right hand.
I saw they promised me 5 minutes.
It's 4 minutes and 1 minute for changeover between speakers, okay? So clock's on the bottom corner, on the bottom right, and
Yeah, I want to just bring one issue about Hamilton Gardens, for the charging of Hamilton Gardens. I understand that there's 3 goals in the Hamilton Garden 10 years plans, building 4+ more gardens, which we can do without extra fundings, as you can see recently how many gardens has been built. But I'm really against charging, because they actually bring a lot of loss. I call it invisible loss for the Hamilton and for the gardens. Hamilton Garden highlights its enclosed garden, which if you charge, not many people will revisit it. You kind of put a very nice jewelry in a box and not showing people. The other thing I want to say is, I had a see of the forecast of the incomes, which I think is optimized. You didn't, I think it didn't including of potentially lost of people willing to donate, potentially lost of other charity to fundraising for Hamilton Gardens, and people willing to actually help out to build more gardens. Yeah, I also made some suggestions for Hamilton Gardens. One of them, I think instead of charge the entry fees, we should charge the tourist bus. Generally speaking, I worked as a volunteer in Hamilton Garden for the weekend. Loads of bus of visitors comes, but they just come to use the facility, which City Council has to pay for. And if you charge the entry fee, they won't come to the enclosed garden. They still come use the facility. So what's the point to actually charge the fee and hoping they will pay it? I think that's the most of the key point from me.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much for your submission. With facility, what do you mean by facility? What are they using the buses?
Toilet.
Mainly?
Mainly toilets. Hardly any one of them come to the shops or actually goes to the enclosed garden. Okay. They come as a stop to using the toilet and then go to Auckland. Hamilton is not a tourist spot. So,
And not a toilet stop.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a toilet stop, sorry. I have to be straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Councillor Gary?
Would you be concerned that if we put a charge on the gardens that people would stop going?
There's a few points I want to say. It's unfair for the people in the Waikato. Lots of people contribute. They live outside of Hamilton. And the other thing is, yes, people won't come. Hamilton Garden is a
Sorry,
Hamilton.
won't or will come?
They won't come.
Won't come.
Yeah, I've asked my colleagues. I work for Waitoa. I work in Waitoa. I ask for my colleagues. They say, oh, if they charge, they don't come. It's like an Auckland museum. You charge, after charge, they hardly go.
Is that because it's not good enough?
One point I have to say, yes. Hamilton Gardens potentially is a great place for people to visit, but at the moment it's not ready.
At the moment, it's not what?
It's not ready.
Oh, ready?
Yeah.
For what?
So people doesn't promote enough of the unique of Hamilton Gardens. Hamilton Gardens should be looked at as the museum of history gardens with models. But I don't see there's much of this uniqueness being promoted around. And Hamilton Gardens is only a must-see in Hamilton. It's not even a must-see in Waikato.
Deputy Mayor Martin, one question, please.
Thank you for your work as a volunteer. I think what I've got from your submission, just that in time we could look at charging for the gardens, but not at the moment.
Yeah, definitely for me. I mean, at the moment we got this much gardens and we don't have the fame to charge people. I've been travel around the world. All those great gardens, they have other things to supply to us. You know, not only just to see the gardens.
Right.
And they much bigger size, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Steve Tritt. Steve. Steve, you have 4 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right-hand corner. The 4 minutes includes questions. Start when you're ready. The clock won't start until you're ready, so just relax.
Can they see that?
Good evening, Mayor Andrew, councillors, staff. So, I'd like to talk about passenger rail. All the talk to date has been about rail to Auckland to help them solve their problems with congestion and labour market. I'm a big fan of rail to Auckland. I was on the original working party about 6 years ago. But I'd like to introduce the concept of autonomous electric rail to the southern communities on the main trunk line. So what's the problem? Around 50,000 commuters enter Hamilton each day from the surrounding areas, many of those from the south, travellers and commuters from Ohaupo, Te Aramura, Otrahona, Tikawiti. In the long term, as petrol prices increase and approach $3 a litre, possibly the end of this year, the viability of commuting to Hamilton will be marginal, and that'll have an effect on the labour market in Hamilton, as well as those small communities that are trying to retain their people. Here's my letter from Phil Twyford. I imagine that you got a letter from the new government, which said the new government's signalling greater priority investment in public transport, more ambitious policies and targets to compact greenhouse gas emissions, and aiming to increase the electric vehicle fleet. So these are things that the government's already signalled through their land transport plan. So I'm not talking about the old days, a return to kind of steampunk. I'm talking about new modes of transport on the Southern Line. I'm talking about autonomous vehicles, small self-contained, not self-drive, but without a driver plying their way to Hamilton's various stations. So the request I've made in the submission is for council to allocate some funding to evaluate the condition and suitability of passenger rail infrastructure and to work with the regional council or its consultants. And I've said the same thing to the Southern councillors to see if they can have a look at their infrastructure as well. I've been here before for annual plans, so I just thought I'd remind you where this fine design for the Hamilton road and rail network came from. It was, after I presented at a previous annual plan, it was picked up by Ewan Wilson and used in his mayoral campaign. This is another one of my ideas from Rugby World Cup time, a platform at Bryce Street for the Rugby World Cup next to the stadiums, and Taya Councillor Dave McPherson got very excited about this at one stage, but it didn't happen. There's a layout of that rail. So I'm talking about rail infrastructure going south, all the small stations kind of looking like that. Trains that may look like that. Of course, you've got electric trains on the route. And that's an old-fashioned train going past Parongia. So can imagine autonomous vehicles, people getting on and off. That's how Auckland sees the southern Waikato in terms of rail infrastructure, and that's the spider web that we see when we connect up all the stations. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We'll take one question from Gary.
Thank you, Steve. Steve, despite the increasing cost of petrol, congestion on the road, people still, when they're given free choice, decide to use their cars. Why would this change anything?
Because there's a lot of people accessing the tertiaries and the labour market from the southern kind of Waikato areas.
These are the people who are driving into Hamilton?
Driving in, commuting. They'd be happy in a carriage, doing their business, doing their
How do you
work.
know that?
It's an extension to the kind of bus routes without the congestion when you come into the city. State Highway 1 coming in around Burger King and Ohaupo Road, hugely congested. And by the time you develop Peacocks and we develop a lot more southern, it's only going to get worse.
Thank you, Gary. That's thank you, Steve.
All right.
Appreciate your presentation. Dorothy Wakeling.
Good evening, everyone. John and
So you have 9 minutes.
Thank you.
The time will be down on the bottom right corner. That includes questions. And just introduce both of you and what organisation you represent.
Yes. Well, John and I, John Wakeling and Dorothy Wakeling, we are the owners of the sculpture park at Waitakere Arboretum. I know quite a few of the councillors have been to the park in the past. So the intention tonight really is to give you a heads up on our intentions to go along the track of the Community Facilities Funding Framework, which the Regional Council has in its long-term plan. Okay, so in time we see that Hamilton City would need to be one, or potentially one of the contributors to that. So not yet at that stage of the proposal, but what we want to give you is an explanation about the offer that we're making. We want a free-to-enter park in return for the cost of maintenance. It's an art and nature experience that provides a platform to grow creative, resourceful, innovative, connected, healthy people of all ages. Just a little bit of a quick introduction, 17.5 hectares of an art and nature experience. It's a 2-kilometre trail along a varied and changing landscape. The Arboretum and it is also a permanent carbon sink or forest sink of more than 20,000 trees. It's a rehabilitation project of a derelict quarry. It's also a known sculpture park destination with more than 50 sculptures and installations. An outdoor creative space. This park is within Waikato District Council, the far southwestern corner of Waikato District, and it's equidistant between Hamilton, Cambridge and Morrinsville. So you can see why we're bringing it to your attention. The majority of people who come to the park come from Hamilton or Cambridge and from other parts of the Waikato, including Matamata-Piako, Morrinsville area. Although when we were open all the time, we had 23% overseas visitors. It's a 2-kilometre trail that is like a loop walk around. There's rocks, cliffs, ponds, flowing water. The Arboretum was planted by geographic origin. Lots of New Zealand native sections, but also trees of other origin from America, from China, and so on. It also has established infrastructure, car park signs to it, and so on. There's a variety of sculptures and installations. If nothing else, it creates conversations. If you come to the park, you're not likely to enjoy everything you see, but you no doubt will talk about it. And that's one of the things that we're delighted for, is that so many family groups come together, and it does enable them to have more of an interaction between each other. The Arboretum walk itself is the 20,000 trees that have been planted over 27 years. It's a mixed forest. It's also protected by covenant as a permanent forest sink under the emissions trading scheme. There's a tree guide that documents at least 278 of the trees currently. We have got a prospectus with the tree guide in it. It is now out of date. Obviously, there are many more trees that have since been planted, many rare trees. Of course, over the years, each year we have more native trees coming back to the park. We're rather delighted that, apart from wood pigeons and herons, that we still have a lot of ruru and tui and kingfisher. Some of you in the past might have attended a concert. We had a lot of charity concerts in the park. In the quarry itself, there's very good acoustics. It's also a creative outdoor space for education. We have a lot of interactive ideas for parents and children on our website, and it also provides an art and nature platform experience for a lot of schools. Its recent history is that we were open for 8.5 years. It attracted up to 10,000 visitors annually. There were 23 new sculpture exhibitions over a certain period, and the Waikato Sculpture Trust had a licence to occupy. Entry fees were charged, and that helped to run those events, and we also had a lot of charity events from Save the Children to Parent Line were among those that were helped. The rehabilitation itself started back in 1991, and at that point all it was gorse, pampas and blackberry. So it has been a considerable transformation over that period of time. In January, we started the Share the Park campaign, and we set out to demonstrate the support for it to be open. We had more than 1,000 visitors over the 4 free days that we were open. That was Anniversary Weekend and Waitangi Day. And I must say we were astounded. We did not expect so many people. The 400 plus that arrived on Waitangi Day were very hard to cope with, as you can imagine. During that period of time, we ran a campaign of crowdfunding on Boost It, which is the Arts Foundation crowdfunding site, and we had 64 donors to raise the $8,000. We also had 190 people fill in a survey during that time with a very high rating. Now, the purpose behind raising the $8,000 was to provide for the 3 components which we think are necessary to go to the next stage in being able to make this free to enter. And that was, we needed an impartial report on the cost of maintenance, we needed an impartial report on the health and safety issues, and the last thing we produced is a prospectus for community investment, which some of you might like to have a look at some stage. But obviously we'll be presenting that to you in due course. We'll put forward to the Community Facilities Funding Framework. Okay, the park provides creative spaces to learn and explore. It's an accessible wilderness environment where imaginations are inspired and innovative minds are nourished. So what we're looking for are direct partnerships. We see that as the best pathway to secure the future of the park. And we invite you to support our offer for a very valuable regional resource. Thank you.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just glancing through your handout here, you say entry fees are charged, but then I think towards the end of your presentation you want to make it free.
We do, yes.
Why is that?
Well, we just think it would be used by a lot more people. There's such a barrier for families to have to pay to come in, and when we were open for those free days, we just had so many children and families come through, 3 or 4 generations together.
But
so
if you generate your own income, don't you control your own destiny?
We never had a proper income from this. We always helped to provide for this. Even when the Waikato Sculpture Trust ran the exhibitions, we had to contribute towards that as well.
So what's the nature of the partnership you're talking about?
We would hope that it might be primarily Waikato District Council with the help of, and this is where the fairness of the Community Facilities Funding Framework lies, is that there would be contributions from some of the other local authorities, and particularly because, for instance, with Hamilton, so many people come from Hamilton to the park, or when it has been open, the fees, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Thank you, John and Dorothy, for your submission. Down to the nitty gritty, if you're looking at getting partnership from Hamilton City Council and Waipa and District, etc., how much are you looking at getting from Hamilton?
Right. Well, what we need to do is to cover the cost of at least 2 full-time staff and the cost of the maintenance, the machinery that are needed. So I think it will get to be a proportional negotiation. I still see that Waikato District Council would probably need to be the primary funder. We will still be looking for other partnerships as well as local authorities, but under that scheme where there's a recognition that needs to be more sharing of the costs for something that is of regional significance, we can see that probably Hamilton would possibly need to be one of the contributors. We think this is a bargain. It would be a free new public park, and all we're asking for is that cost of maintenance. So it would be relatively small, and I think that quantum is not something I can just give you offhand. It's a good question.
It would be subject to negotiation between the local authorities, the partners whom we hope to attract, the proportion of
park. Thank you. I've been there, it's a great park.
Oh, good, thank you.
Have you submitted to Waikato Regional Council?
And we did. Indeed, we did, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Because
And they can see the relevance of what we're doing at a regional scale as well.
yes,
Yeah.
yep. Under their community funding framework would be the ideal place to pull in all the councils.
That's right.
So, all right. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Good.
Laura Callaway, sorry. So you have 9 minutes. I will leave it to you to introduce yourselves and your organisation. Thank you.
My name is Laura Callaway and I'm part of the newly formed Heritage Tauhanga Group. Our primary purpose is to try and assist with heritage in the Waikato, but also of course in Hamilton, which is our hometown. I have Lynn Williams with me, who's reasonably famous for writing little tattoos on cemeteries past. Anyway, so what we'd like to do is just quickly present some of the highlights of our submission. And the picture in front of you is the Frankton Station Master's House, 1879. Sits right beside the cemetery and up above the gardens. Unfortunately, it's a bit lost from sight, and you'll see I've used 2 versions of sight there. Oops, I'll just... So, heritage places in Hamilton are finite and increasingly rare. In our view, heritage equals tourism. Without heritage, there is no future for the Frankton Community Plan and the Hamilton East Plan. Hamilton has a heritage inventory that is 20 years out of date. The proposed South End heritage area has never been completed, and there is no central city heritage area at all. Hamilton has a very small heritage fund, only 100,000. This is very low for a major city, and it appears to not be funded for the next 10 years, and of course it's not accumulative. Hamilton has no heritage panel. It was closed in 2016. The urban panel that we have is not the same thing. Hamilton has a heritage plan with jobs still to be done. So one of the asks we've got is that rather than actually develop a new garden around this Frankton Station Master's house, that it actually gets brought back to Hamilton and back to Frankton in particular, which was promised some time ago. The issue is that it was actually bought by Hamilton City Council against the advice of the community and taken away from the Frankton Railway settlement, and instead we have a waste care centre there. It sits there hidden in the cemetery. It's not part of Frankton, and it's nowhere near any railway. And of course, what's happened in Frankton over the years is that a lot of its heritage has been lost. And so this is a rare surviving building. In fact, the oldest one we've now got. So we just really appreciate it if there'd be some consideration to using a little bit of the money that might be put aside for a garden there to instead actually bring it back home to Frankton. Another issue that we're looking at is the South End precinct. And, sorry, yeah? Sorry, it doesn't come forward. The historic South End precinct. Several members of our group have actually been involved in this for almost 40 years, and we're actually involved in the revitalisation and the wording of the South End. It dates to the 1980s when the developers around New Zealand decided Hamilton was a good place to actually bulldoze and turn into a mid-city complex. And what happened is the community got together with the support of Hamilton City Council and looked at revitalising it. In turn, over 15 buildings were researched by members of our group, and we put forward a South End precinct that focused around Hood Street. But there was no follow-through, despite requests. Today, a number of these buildings are scheduled in the district plan, but it's not a heritage area. That never happened. So the Golden Mile is full of a streetscape of 2- and 3-storey buildings, something that's rare. The gaps are where the historic buildings have been demolished, the Embassy Theatre being one. So what we're just saying is that when you look at the heritage down that end and you're thinking about what's going to happen with the park, there's buildings there, there's a history, they have depth to them, and they're what we've got in the way of heritage in Hamilton these days. You might know the Little Victoria building, another one beside it. But there's also this one. None of these things are scheduled in the district plan. The Hamilton Hotel site, what we'd like to see is a better recognition of the heritage about this actual place. Wahitapu, historic site, historic trees and historic garden. That's what it's looking like today. You're probably quite familiar with it, but it's more than just one building. You'll see there's a building there on the right-hand side that's actually part of the hotel as well. 1994, a photographer went down and took these photos. This is actually the back of the hotel and inside. This is the back of the hotel today. These are still the buildings that form part of that site. Here's one of the historic trees, one of the oldest in Hamilton, and a beautiful view from the river, looking back up at the gardens and the 5 historic trees. So it's more than just a facade. We're also keen to support anyone in a heritage building that has a community basis, and for this we put forward that we'd like to see St Peter's Hall and the Reed Cottage actually kept in community ownership. It's actually a collection of 3 little buildings that form part of the southern end of the heritage precinct, with a hall and 2 cottages. Council owns the 2 ones with the red roofs. We'd like to say that there's some really good examples in Hamilton of some heritage work, and this is the Arts Post building, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But again, it's not a facade, and really it shouldn't be a building that's been seen in isolation. It is, though, pretty isolated today. So for us, heritage equals tourism, it equals good design. Please fund it. Please improve the Heritage Fund, not just $100,000. It'd be great to see that as an accumulative fund of $100,000 each year for the next 10. We'd like you to bring back the Heritage Panel for advice and monitoring. Bring back the Frankton Station Master's House to Frankton. Protect the South End. And do this before you actually give demolitions and parks a go-ahead. Please consider it first as part of the process. We support the update of the out-of-date heritage inventory that we own. We'd like you to look at the Hamilton Hotel, Garden, Wahitapu, and consider the funding of heritage places, not a modern development in this case. They're 2 very different things. So heritage equals tourism. We'd like to see it funded like the Hamilton Gardens, or even just a little bit would be really great. It's important to keep the community and community heritage, and we'd like people to actually hear us just for once. This has been going on for decades in this town, or should I say city. Some of us would like to give an E for what's happened with heritage here. I gave you a D. It'd be really great to actually see a B and not see us in the news for all the wrong reasons when it comes to heritage. This little pocket park here, it's a little bit sad really. This was an attempt in '94 to actually rescue our Royal Theatre, the Theatre Royal. Unfortunately, against all odds, it came down, and now of course it's a pocket park. So we'd like to not see a heritage building sitting painted on the wall of another building. We'd actually like to have seen that piece of heritage actually kept. So this is not a good example of what's actually happened in the South End. And this is right where all those parks are going. And just a last 2-second quickie, Waipa District Council, just doing their 10-year plan. They have a strong heritage base, 3.6 million on the heritage sites to go forward, 7.2 on a new discovery centre with heritage as a focus, 4 million to help support the historic town hall. They have a heritage panel They have a heritage fund of 70,000, which is pretty good for a small council, and they have a positive response in their 10-year plan. So we'd like to match that and perhaps some more. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take one question, Councillor Angelo. Sorry.
Thanks, Mayor Andrew. Thanks for your submission and thank you for your work on the Frankton Plan so many years ago. Laura, where would you re-site? Do you have a new site in mind for the Frankton Station Masters House?
Well, unfortunately, the last site it had is your waste care centre. However, the site it had before that is actually the centre of Frankton. It was right next door to the railway station, which used to be just off High Street. It's where Forlongs and others have had land. That would be the perfect site for it. However, if you're going to put it back there, it needs to be so you can actually see the railway line and not see new developments around it. So yes, we do, back where it came from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, time's up, so thanks for your presentation.
Governor, can we ask the submitter to get a copy of, I think there's on-screen information as an additional to this, have I got that wrong? We could just get that circulated to us.
You've got it.
Have we got it? Oh, okay, it's been circulated. Where is it?
Noel Barker.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Noel. You have 4 minutes. The time's at the bottom right-hand corner, and just start when you're ready. And if the 4 minutes includes questions.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I just wanted to give you a verbal overview of a couple of points that I've raised in my written submission. As a resident of Hamilton and a soon-to-be ratepayer. In terms of the first challenge, which is dealing with the rating, the proposed change to the rating system, I endorse the Council's proposal, which is option 6, as set out in the consultation document, to shift to a capital value system over the 2-year period, and also to introduce a $500 UAGC. I think that capital value rating system is a much simpler and fairer way of rating. And just having a look at some of the submissions that you have received, it seems that there's quite a diverse opinion around that. But I think, you know, rates are essentially a form of property tax, and there will always be winners and losers. But my understanding is that Hamilton City Council is somewhat of an outlier in using land value rating, with, I think, almost all councils around New Zealand using capital value. In terms of the second challenge around the next big housing area, I support Peacocks being developed as the next major housing area, and I think that will allow the council to take advantage of the Crown's Housing Infrastructure Fund, and also it will provide the opportunity to link in with a number of other projects like the Southern Links, the Waikato Expressway, and the extension of Waiwere Drive, to essentially link up that area to that infrastructure. I endorse the Council's proposal in terms of the improvements to the transportation system, with significant funding being set aside for walking and cycling. I think that is a fantastic proposal that the Council has put forward. In terms of the community infrastructure, the challenge number 4 is set out in your consultation document. I support the 9 projects that have been identified, and there's certainly been a lot of discussion around those projects. I would just note in terms of the proposed Central City Park, I think this is, while I support the project, I do think that it needs to be integrated with a central city strategy, so that we can have an integrated approach to how we deal with that particular part, and how we link it into the river plan, how we link it into the heritage plan, and the new theatre. In terms of the new theatre, I support that. I think it will be a transformational project for the city and beyond. And I think it's wonderful to locate it within the central city. I think that will provide a great opportunity going forward. I think the only concern I would have is around the heritage aspect of that. In terms of your refuse and recycling, I support the proposal to move to wheeled bins. In terms of the digitising city news, I would ask that the council retain the current approach there. In terms of the sale of the old St Peter's Hall, the Citizens Advice Bureau, as you'll well be aware, do use that facility, and I would hope their needs can be accommodated given the work that they do in terms of providing that information and resource to the community. In terms of heritage, you would have heard from the previous speaker about the Heritage Fund, and I do endorse those comments that we do need to make sure that that is recognised and celebrated in the city. And I wish you well in your decision making.
Thank you. Bang on for time. So we will take one quick question from Gary and the Deputy Mayor. So precise and short, please.
Thank you, Niall. What did you mean by the heritage implications of the new theatre?
Well, my understanding is that where it's going to be located is a scheduled heritage building. Yep. That would be demolished. So I think it will be important as part of that project to make sure that we do celebrate the heritage of the site and that we recognise that as part of the theatre and also with the wider Central City Park.
Does celebrate mean retain?
I think that's
how
probably
do you celebrate it?
That's probably something that needs to be worked through with experts that are beyond me. But heritage is a finite resource, and I think it needs to be taken into account. I don't know how you can work that in or work some of the heritage features into the new building. That's probably beyond my realm.
Thank you,
Deputy Mayor.
Your comments on heritage are absolutely noted. Interesting, given your demographic. I'm interested that you want still to see the City News as a print version. I've been told I'm somewhat old-fashioned, but could you give the reasons for that, please?
Yes, absolutely. We certainly are moving in a digital age, and I think if the City News isn't currently digitised, then let's do so. But I think it's important to a lot of people aren't digitally literate, so maintaining that for those that aren't is probably something we need to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niall.
Thank you.
Appreciate your consent. Steve West. Thanks, Steve. You have 4 minutes. Clock's on the bottom right corner, including questions. Start when you're ready.
Yeah, my name's Steve West. I've lived in Hamilton for about 50 years. I've grown up here. I'm probably on my own here because everybody before me has asked for money. I'm on the other side. I'm saying stop spending money. Okay, the rates that people are paying are hurting our people. Okay, I've got 2 daughters who are new to the housing market, and to them, I'm having to help them get petrol money to get to work and that. And so small amounts of money is a lot. So I'm here saying stop spending money. On people's campaign for the council, I've heard things like keep Hamilton growing and there must be a better way. Now when people move to a city or to live, rates are something they consider. When you purchase a house, you find out what the rates are. When you move to a city, you find out what the rates are, and it becomes whether it's affordable to live in that city or not. Make Hamilton affordable. Hamilton is not a tourist city. If we were Queenstown and all our money was relying on tourism, it'd be different. But Hamilton isn't. Hamilton is a great city to live in, but it is a business centre and its location to other areas is what makes it a great place. The Hamilton City Council need to stick to their core business, infrastructure. You provide the basis for that and people will come and people will build. The council should be learning from their previous mistakes. We've made mistakes with the Claudelands Event Centre, the Waikato Stadium. the V8s, Seddon Park, and it's now costing the ratepayer ongoing millions of dollars. We can't afford to do it. One other point I want to touch on is the uniform annual general charge. I do actually agree with a uniform charge. I don't agree with the SUIP. I actually recently spoke to one of the your council staff members, Matthew Bell, about it, and the council's interpretation of how SUIP was interpreted. And he made it quite clear that each house and each separate room in a house could be subject to an SUIP. So that would mean if you had a house with 10 rooms in it, 10 SUIPs. Now at the moment I know that isn't the council's concern or the direction you want to go, but as time passes and they will introduce an SUIP because you've got a second bathroom in the house, another SUIP because you've got a second living area, and it will go on from there. So I think it's something that needs to be clarified by the council. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, just looking at your submission here, you talk about the drainage proposal, and you talk to some members of your sports club, and they pretty much balked at the $515 per park. What was the figure that they were talking about? So you can give us a ballpark if you don't mind.
Oh, it was, I can't remember. It was one of our members who was from Downer Construction.
Right.
And it was something about $40,000, $50,000. I can't remember the exact figure though.
40 or 50 all up?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, my understanding is there's only one more submitted tonight. Lloyd Sini, is there anyone else we've missed? No, thank you, Lloyd. So Lloyd, you have 4 minutes. The time is on the bottom right-hand corner. That includes questions.
Yep, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening for me tonight. My submission is about the area of WA. I think you've all been familiar with WA. In 2005, the Hamilton City Council and the Waikato District Council agreed in a strategic agreement that WA will be transferred once a wastewater solution could be confirmed. The Waikato District Council has confirmed that they still have no objection to the transfer. City Infrastructure has confirmed that there is now a wastewater solution for WA, see page 4 on my submission. A second alternative wastewater solution has been raised, and we have yet to consider this with the City Infrastructure. This is the third submission raised concerning WA over a 13-year period. The previous submission was denied as pipes were full, but then you let dairy goat in to the system equivalent of 3,500 houses. I understand that one of the city's infrastructure projects is to put another 900 diameter wastewater pipe along Avalon Drive. If this goes ahead, this will relieve and future-proof Rotokauri and Dinsdale Western areas. The WA area will have a capacity of approximately 300 houses at no cost to the Hamilton City Council. For the Hamilton City Council to see the benefits of the above proposal and slush boundary relocation, is in everybody's best interest to initiate the action on this proposal sooner rather than later, as a process such as this can be lengthy. As a business decision, it's an economical solution to assist in the Hamilton City Council's in the current housing situation. So it just needs to turn over. It's submission to act on a submission that's been already proposed. Is there any questions?
Deputy Mayor Martin.
Yeah, I've just located this area, so it's Wallace Road, right? It's that bit as you go out towards. So, I'm sorry, can you just repeat, late at night as I, even looking at my documents here, Could you just repeat, so what you are looking for from both the Waikato District and City Council is the consideration of moving this block into the city? Is that?
No, the Hamilton City Council and the Waikato District Council have already agreed it would be transferred into the city.
Yeah.
That's already been agreed.
Right.
But it wouldn't happen until the Hamilton City had the infrastructure to support it.
Right, so it wasn't year Pacific, it was infrastructure, assessment of infrastructure.
Yes, it was, yeah.
So your submission is, given its geographic proximity to other built areas in terms of a building as a development block, your submission is to pursue with our staff to bring that in to make it available for development.
Yes, it wasn't to be transferred until there was a plan for it to come in,
right.
To be serviced. There is now a plan for it to be serviced, plus an alternative plan, and so the action is there. It's all ready to go, and I'm just asking the council to consider it and action on the submission.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I think I've got it. Yeah.
Thank you, Lloyd. There's no further questions.
Okay. Cheers.
Okay, just before we finish for the night, we'll go around the table one more time on anything new that's come up. So that's only since the 6:30 dinner break till now. And Richard, can you please be involved in this again to ensure that you're comfortable with the questions that are coming through?
Yes, just a reminder that it's questions for clarity of the submitters we've had since we last had this conversation.
So it's only on the last bit. So has anyone got anything else they want to add? Yes, Councillor Mark.
I'd like to see our numbers on the drainage in the sports parks. A little bit more detail on that, please.
Oh, I missed that, Councillor. What was that, sorry?
Is it appropriate for me to ask for more detail on our proposal for sports parks?
Yeah, no, that's appropriate. Yep, that's fine. We've already provided that information. We'll provide again. Yep, that's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Gary.
Two things. Just a follow-up on Steve West's submission. Just a a concise definition of an SUIP and what can be included as one and what is not included as one.
Yep, I can give you an answer now, but I'll take it offline and provide it later on.
Okay. And also, just to follow up on Lloyd's presentation, that went over my head a bit. I just want to know what the position is and what is the status of that.
Yep, so we've briefed a number of times on this. I can pull that
Have we?
information. Yeah. No, I'm not having a go. You guys, I'm not having a dig. You have got a lot of information.
That's all right.
We have that information, and so there's some capital in our 10-year plan. Effectively, what Lloyd's suggesting is we bring that capital forward, which will then meet the wastewater solution that's required. Yep.
Thank you very much.
James, Leo, Rob, and yep.
One, I assume, just following on from Gary, I assume that Mr. Seni's business case stacks up and that there are other neighbours in that street who will want to do the same in terms of bringing their properties into the city, and I assume that the capital cost would simply be offset by additional rates that the city would get. Is that the sort of approach that follows on from his submission?
No, it's a bit more complex than that, but we've got information on that. We've
Okay,
provided
so
previously.
you'll bring that. Okay,
Yep.
and the only other point is around the heritage panel, and my recollection was that mid-term we were going to, and this may not be a 10-year issue, but mid-term we were going to consider whether those panels which were taken out at the beginning of the term would be reconsidered as to whether there was a need for them. So I suggest that...
So that's part of the questioning and the discussion we'll be having with the Mayor at that stage.
Yep, okay.
Siggy, Angela, Paula, Deputy Mayor Martin.
Yeah, look, I also understand with our new City Growth Manager, there is some further reports coming with regard to heritage issues, and I'm wondering if perhaps just bring us, when we talk about it, just give us all an update of where that sits on our calendar, because that may or may not pick up Laura's.
So was that a question on how new Jen is? She's been here for 2 months.
No, well, we have...
Okay, let's keep this moving, guys.
The question is...
Richard, don't complicate it.
The report's coming to Council in August.
Thank you.
Well, we've got a D. Actually, that's generous in my view, but anyway, I want a B. Sorry, so as long as that report's coming, that's good.
Okay, there's a couple more things before we go. Firstly, Julie's going to read out who didn't turn up today, who we were expecting.
So today we had submitted Jantawa Tamar, who was meant to be here at 12:25 and didn't appear, and a submitter, Phil Curran, at 5:50, who rang in. He was ill, so he couldn't attend. In addition, we added in some additional submitters, Roger Stafford, Suzanne O'Rourke, and Eon Field.
Okay, and can I ask staff if we leave our laptops and briefcases and everything here for our 9:30 in the morning, are they going to be safe? Who's in charge of that?
Yes.
Okay, so members can leave all this stuff here if they want to. So, okay, thank you very much. We'll now adjourn the meeting until tomorrow 9:30. Is that right? Thank you. Thanks all for your patience. It's been a big day.